Okay, so today we're going to talk about The Jasmine Throne. This is a book I finished recently. I did originally have an e-arc from Net Galley, and I started reading it there, and then promptly purchased my own copy. So all my opinions are my own, etc. Thank you for the early review copy, Net Galley, and let's get into it. So like all of my reviews, I start at the top just talking about my experience. What baggage did I bring into this reading experience, and how did it feel for me? So I basically read this because I wanted a slow burn fantasy. Like, that's what I wanted. I knew this was going to be like a slow paced, building it up fantasy with, a lot of setup. It's the first in a series. I wanted to slowly explore a new world, meet new characters. I wasn't looking for anything super fast. So that was my mood when I picked it up, and it completely met my expectations and was perfect for that. Like, this is very in line with, like, if you read Live Ship Traders or other really long fantasies where, like, it definitely has moments of excitement. It's definitely not so slow-paced that it drags, but it's not, like, what you would call action-packed. And so that was what I was looking for when I picked this up, and it delivered. And I don't know what my rating is yet. I haven't had to film a wrap-up yet, so I haven't had to do that. It's a 4.5 or 5 stars. I'm leaning towards 5, let me tell you. And I read the last 150 pages in one sitting, which I never do anymore because I have the attention span of a gnat. I just normally can only sit down for 30 minutes at a time, and I sat down for 2 hours and finished this book. Now, did I also have plans to play board games after that, so I really needed to get it done or wait till later? Maybe. But I also didn't notice that time was going by, and I was having a fantastic time with the ending. So that's my experience. And now let's talk briefly about the synopsis of this work. So in this book, we are in, I think it's Indian inspired, but it's a different world. We have, I think, 5 different city-states and a unifying kingdom. In this kingdom, we have an emperor, and we start with the emperor punishing his sister for not sacrificing herself on the altar. Yeah. That's how we start off. That is the prologue. And so she is going to be imprisoned because she will not do this self-sacrifice for the nation. We also meet Priya, who is a maidservant who exists in an area that is more occupied than the other city-states. The other city-states have government. They are able to have a more equal rule, but this one has a history where it was taken over, occupied, and punished. So that's where she's living, and she's a maidservant in one of the wealthier households. I think actually it is kind of the regent for that region. And we meet her, and we kind of know that there's more to her than meets the eye, and she puts herself in a situation where she gets to help take care of this princess who has been imprisoned. So that's where the story starts. And it's really good. Okay? So how to start with this review, because I'm not as coherent as I want it to be. First of all, you need to know it is slow, medium paced. It has explosive moments. It has moments of tension. My heart did do things. But it is not an action-packed fantasy story, so don't go in expecting that. I will also say this is my first Tasha Suri, and I thought the writing was phenomenal. She was able to put a scene together in a way that I felt and could see in my weird, atmospheric feeling way. Sometimes I even could almost, visualize the room. She was so good at setting the scene. I really loved her writing. I'm excited to check out more of her works because this has the makings of just a favorite author. Not just a favorite story, but an author who conveys thoughts and feelings in a way that I love to consume. So those are things that I would say up front. I also know some people who are wondering how heavy the romance aspects of this book are, because I do believe Empires of Sand and Realms of Ash are more fantasy romance than just pure fantasy. I could be wrong. I have not read them. But I would say that this is a fantasy book that has a romance element, but that romance element is not the focus of the story. It is there, it is important, but it is not the focus. So if you want a romance and you're here for the romance, you will be disappointed because that's not the focus. This isn't a romance in a fantasy setting. And also, it's a fantasy book that does not disregard romance. There is a character relationship development that is pivotal to the story and how characters engage with plot elements. But I think it's done really well and really realistically and looks at the messiness really in a fantastic way. Like, I think it's handled extremely well. And I like when there's romance in my stories and when it's done well, specifically, because it's more character interactions, which we all know by now. I love character interactions. And that kind of leads us into, like, what I think is the strongest part of this work is every time characters are talking to each other and engaging with each other and trying to get other people to see their viewpoint, I couldn't look away. Like, these character interaction moments were so good and messy. We have, like, siblings that have to talk to each other. We have, like I said, romantic interests. We have political conversations. Like, all of these interactions were so good for me. I really loved how they played out on page. They were just phenomenal. And I love the characters. Priya and Melanie, they made it to my favorite characters for the first half of 2021, and that's because they are such strong, fantastic protagonists, and they are strong in different ways. Priya is a very compassionate, caring individual who is trying to be smart and not too naive, but also do what's right on her count and listen to her feelings. Oh, I really like Priya. And then Melanie, she's ruthless, and she will do what it takes to make things work. I really love both of these characters, and they both also fall into tropes that I also really like. Like I mentioned previously, Priya is more than meets the eye. Priya has a part of her past that she doesn't quite remember that is repressed, and learning about that is really cool. So that's another thing, is that not only are they really well developed, they have tropey qualities that I really like in a story. I also think this world was extremely intriguing and really well put together. When you enter this world, there is kind of this disease that's discussed, and I wasn't expecting that, and you get to kind of learn about that, and it just adds this other, like, ominous layer to the story. And we have different religions, and I love the interaction of these religions in these different political situations and different magical situations. Learning about those things was extremely cool. I'm not going to talk about them too much because I think the discovery of those things is really awesome. But as someone who likes world building to be a part of the intrigue of a story I consume, I thought it was top notch. I mean, part of it is that we're not being info dumped a lot of things. When we're learning about things, we're learning about it as a character does, and sometimes if something's common knowledge to a character, they don't elaborate. Like, at the beginning of the story, we're told why Melanie was supposed to do the thing for her brother, but I don't actually really know why, if that makes sense. Like, at that moment in the story, I'm just like, wait, why are we doing this? Why is this tradition important? I don't get it. I know it's for religious reasons, but, like, huh? And, like, the way you learn about that is not through an info dump at any point. Although I'm sure there are some things that are info dumps because I don't notice when that happens. But for the most part, the world building was very mysterious. I just, like, there were a lot of things I wanted to learn more about at any given point, whether it was about how these different regions work together, what happened in the past to put us in this position. I don't know. I just thought that was really well done. Like, the minute we met that disease in the city when we first meet Priya, and, like, that's the thing we learned about, I'm like, oh, so the environment is also a part of the plot. Because originally when you start reading it, you know it's like a political fantasy. Like, things are happening. You know, obviously the princess and the emperor are not on the same side, and we have this kind of occupied city-state. An insert, not standard, but predictable-ish rebellion fantasy plot, right? Like, that's what my brain was doing. But then I learned, ooh, the land and the old magic is doing a thing. And I like when an antagonistic portion potentially is nature and, like, exploring that. So there's really cool things in the lore that are really fun to, like, explore and think about. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But if you are someone like me who likes that to be a part of their reading experience, it's for sure there. The story really also has amazing themes with feminism, leadership, family, all the complexities and all of those. And of course, there's a rebellion like I was talking about. So all of those conversations of an occupied city-state, you know, how to be democratic, who should lead who. It's all there. I think what this book does in a way that I really like that makes it stand out from other books that do, this type of theming is the feminism. We have really strong female characters in this work, and they are all strong in very distinct ways, and they all have their own agenda, and I really appreciate all three of them. I love them all for very different reasons. And they show different ways to be strong and to fight in a world that is a patriarchy, if that makes sense. Like, I really like them. There's a thing that happens with one of them, and I'm just like so pumped for the second book. I have so many things that I'm curious about for the second book. And there were so many moments that I just like fist pumped, epic, yes, I was hoping this would happen moments. Like, it had those moments that's why I read. I love to read for those moments. So obviously everything I said here that is a positive for me could be a negative for you. So hopefully this helps you decide if this is for you. Because I do think probably the biggest part that's hard to figure out if this is a book you should read is the pacing. Because it's not fast-paced. And sometimes I think it's easier to not be in a mood for a slow-paced book than it is to not be in a mood for a fast-paced book, if that makes sense. So, if you made it this far, leave a flower in the as your emoji, because Jasmine is a flower. And let me know if you have read it, and if so, who's your favorite character? And if you haven't read it, are you going to read it? What reservations do you have if you're not going to read it? But otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.